One of the great mercies that the Lord gives us is that we are judged by our hearts rather than our actions. A well-intentioned person, someone who's got a good heart, who's trying to do the right thing, who accidentally makes a mistake or hurts someone, is way better off than someone who is selfish and conceited on the inside, but then does good things for their own sake because they want to show off or they want to get people to treat them a certain way or manipulate people. Right? The person who has a good heart and does the wrong thing is a lot better off than the person who has a bad heart but ends up doing the right thing. And yet, that truth can lull us into a false sense of security. We can start to feel like, well, as long as my heart's in the right place, as long as I have the right intentions, I don't need to worry about the impact of my actions. And if we're thinking of other people, if someone hurts us, we might think, well, how can I hold that against them? Because I know they were trying to do the right thing. Maybe I don't need to call them out because I know their heart was in the right place. But it's more complicated than that. It's not as simple as that. We actually have to take responsibility for our mistakes. Even if we had the best of intentions. We need to have the humility to be able to say, I was trying to do the right thing, but I've hurt someone or I've done something wrong. Now I need to make amends. I need to apologize. I need to fix this situation. Now, Jesus has an interesting parable that speaks to this. That talks about the consequences of our actions and why we need to clean them up if we do evil things out of ignorance. This parable is about a master who leaves his household for a time, and he puts one of his servants in charge. So this is how the parable goes. If that servant says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming, and he begins to beat the male and the female servants, and to eat and drink and be drunk, the master of that servant will come on a day when he is not looking for him, and at an hour when he is not aware, and will cut him in two, and appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. All right, I'm going to pause there, because that's very brutal. It doesn't really fit well into our understanding of how we should treat people. It does not seem at all like what is right. But remember, this is talking about something spiritual. This is talking about the consequences. So the servant who willfully and knowingly did all these horrible things has brought horrible consequences on himself. And guess what? When we do really bad things on purpose, we bring consequences on ourselves. Not that we're punished, not that we're killed or condemned, but that we bring really bad consequences. And it continues, and that servant who knew his master's will and did not prepare himself to do according to his will shall be beaten with many stripes. So he'll get a severe punishment. But he who did not know, yet committed things deserving of stripes, shall be beaten with few. For everyone to whom much is given, from him much will be required. And to whom much has been committed, of him they will ask the more. So it's interesting here. It doesn't say, the one who knew the right thing to do and did bad things, he'll be punished. And the one who did bad things out of ignorance, he'll get off scot-free, he won't have any punishment. No, it didn't say that. It said, he'll have a lighter punishment, but he'll still get punished. Now we might say this is unfair, and it would be unfair if this is how maybe if you treat your employees this way, it might not be the best way of doing things. But spiritually, it's talking about consequences. It's talking about the natural result. This is what happens to us when we do evil things, when we do the wrong things, when we go against the Lord's teachings. If we do it on purpose, it's really dire for us spiritually. We're really hurting our spiritual well-being. But even if we do it out of ignorance, there are bad consequences. There are ways that will damage and hurt us, even if we don't know any better, even if we're trying our best. And they're lesser. And the fact that we didn't mean it negates some of the harm. But even when we do bad things out of ignorance, there is still harm that's caused. And that's why we actually need to deal with these things. We can't say, my heart was in the right place. Or, as we said in the children's talk, we can't just say, well, I was only joking. We actually have to take responsibility, take ownership of some of these things. Now, This is really uncomfortable to admit. And it can put us in an awkward position. And I want you to think right now. See if you can, in your mind, think back. Has there been a time where you've hurt someone unintentionally, accidentally, you had the best of intentions, and then when you were called out for doing it, you got really defensive? Because I think that's most of our response is to get really defensive because we were trying to do the right thing. We didn't try to hurt someone. So if they got hurt, it's their fault, or I don't have to deal with it. It can feel really painful to be called out in this way. I remember hearing a story from a friend who had an experience of this. I think it was when she was in university. She was working with an NGO. I think it might have been in Kenya, or certainly East Africa somewhere, and they were out in some remote village and looking into the possibility of digging a well for this village because the only fresh water was, miles away, and so the villagers had to go out and collect water and then come back. And so they did this. They went through this process. They gave the villagers access to fresh water right there so that suddenly the women of the village, who did most of the gathering of water, they didn't have to spend those hours going to get the water and the hours coming back, right? The intentions were fantastic. Well, it turns out it had a really detrimental effect on the social structure of that particular village community because a lot of socializing and a lot of social structure was being reinforced as they went out to collect the water and as they came back. And suddenly they didn't have that space anymore. So it actually caused some damage to that group of people. And it's interesting because that was not at all the intention, right? This organization, their intention was, we want to help. And they did help, but they also caused harm. Now they could have gotten very defensive and they could have said, well, we gave you something good. It's your fault if it didn't work out the way you wanted it to. We're going to wash our hands of it. Now I don't know what they actually did, but hopefully they'd stay engaged and they'd start to take ownership of that. Okay, how can we start trying to support you guys in actually having a healthy community and have fresh water? Now that's sort of on the social level and organization. But something that I think probably a lot of us have experienced is a meddling family member. A family member who sticks their nose into things that are none of their business and actually sort of stirs the pot a little bit and makes things worse. That family member probably has the best of intentions. Now, not always, but they're just trying to help. They're just trying to make things better. And yet, they end up causing more harm than good. They cause harm to the people they're trying to help because they're stirring up resentment. They also cause harm to themselves because they're actually less able to help. That family member is going to start to get left out of family conversations. They're not going to be trusted. You're not going to go up to them and say, hey, let me unburden my heart to you because they might get involved in things. And it hurts the family and it hurts that person too. It actually causes harm. So, how do we start to shift this? How do we start taking responsibility for these things? Where we're able to say, instead of getting defensive and saying, I was only joking, or I had the best of intentions, or I was just trying to help, how do we say, you know what, I did mess up, and I hurt someone? I think part of the reason is part of the thing we need to do is to deal with guilt. No one likes to feel guilt. No one likes to feel like, I've made a mistake. And sometimes when we formed a habit out of doing these kinds of things, to admit that actually I was in the wrong is to say, I've made a ton of mistakes. And that's hard to face. Hard to feel like I'm responsible for so many more things now. It's bad enough when you're just responsible for the overt mistakes. If now you're going to admit to being responsible for unintentional mistakes, it can feel like it's just going to be a mountain of guilt. And that's one of the reasons why we deflect it. I was just joking. I didn't mean it. I had the best of intentions. Now, that's a useful thing to acknowledge. It really actually can be quite helpful to start from, I did have good intentions. Some people go the opposite way and they say, I made a mistake and now all I see is the bad that I've done. But to start from a place of, I did have good intentions, and that's a good thing, and that means I am on my way to being a good person, and I'm going to hold on to that, but I'm also going to start trying to clean up my mistakes. There's a passage from the Lord's Word that can help us with how to hold these kinds of mistakes. Now, this passage is an Old Testament law, which means it's going to be about how you control your animals. Not particularly relevant, it might seem, to our modern age, but it actually has a lot to say about this mindset where we've made mistakes. So let's go to this quote from Exodus. If an ox gores a man or a woman to death, then the ox shall surely be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten. But the owner of the ox shall be acquitted. But if the ox tended to thrust with its horn in times past, and it has been made known to its owner, and he has not kept it confined, so that it has killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. All right, so this law presents two scenarios. Scenario one, the man has no reason to believe his ox is a danger to anyone, and so if it gores someone, if it hurts someone, well, he's not culpable. He's not guilty. He didn't know better. In the second case, the man has been informed. This ox has tried to gore some people, has tried to get people with its horn. He knows better now, and he hasn't done anything to restrain it. Well, now he bears full responsibility. Now he's culpable, because he knew better. All right, so how does this apply to someone who is doing evil out of ignorance? They don't know better. Well, for one thing, that person is not guilty initially. Right? They're not actually guilty. They've done some harm. They're not culpable in a lot of senses. On the other hand, when that ox has hurt some people and he's been informed and he still doesn't change anything, now he's culpable. Now he can be guilty if he keeps causing harm. We encounter a comparable situation in the modern world. Consider, going back to the family scenario, a very sweet auntie who wants nothing but the best for her family, but she really does more harm than good, the meddling aunt. And while she might have had her behavior pointed out to her, she always deflects away the blame. She means well, she wants what's best for people, etc. But underlying it all is a fear, right? The reason she's deflecting is this fear. If she admits the harm she's done, going back decades maybe, she'll be burdened with unbearable guilt. She can't admit to it because it will make her feel guilty about the fact that she's been doing this family thing wrong for years. So it's easier to just keep going on insisting she's in the right. The Old Testament law offers a different perspective, though. It offers her a way forward. When the harm is brought to her attention, when someone says, you're actually doing more harm than good here in the family, she's not suddenly guilty for all the mistakes she's made in the past. It's not like now she has to, really beat herself up for all the things she's done wrong in the past. All that she has to do is control what happens going forward into the future. Is she going to allow harm to continue to be caused in the family? Or now that she knows better, is she going to change her behavior? Not just like the owner of the ox, if she doesn't change her behavior now she's going to start being guilty for the mistakes she's making, the things she's doing wrong. The teachings of the new church explain this reality by referring back to Jesus' teachings. This is from the book Secrets of Heaven. It says, seeing and understanding that something is evil and continuing to do it makes a person guilty. As the Lord teaches in John, the Pharisees said, are we also blind? Jesus said to them, if you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you say, we see, therefore your sin remains. It's only after we've seen our sin, our evil, that we become guilty of future actions. And even though it's painful to realize that we've caused harm with the best of intentions in the past, seeing that past mistake and recognizing it and acknowledging it is the only way we're going to move forward and stop causing harm in the future. We can't stop what we're not aware of. Now, some people kind of take this teaching to mean the opposite. If someone's only guilty when they become aware of it and then keep doing it, why not leave them in ignorance? They think they're doing the right thing, And if I tell them they're doing the wrong thing, it'll make them feel guilty. So I'm not even going to tell them. That sweet auntie, I'm not going to let her know she's actually hurting people. We're not going to actually try to fix any of this. They have the best of intentions. Won't they be better off if we don't say anything? I would say no. Absolutely not. If someone is causing harm, they are not better off if they're left in ignorance. It is not kind to allow someone to carry on believing they're doing good when they're actually hurting other people, when they're doing evil, and they're going to be suffering the consequences of that. Remember, if we go all the way back to that parable, the servants who didn't know better, they still got a consequence. So if we see someone in our life who is causing harm, who's hurting us, even though they have the best of intentions, they're going to suffer the consequences of that. And we can actually save them from those consequences by letting them know the harm they're causing. Now, initially, it is going to be worse for them. It's going to be more painful for them. Initially, it might be very awkward and embarrassing. It might be very uncomfortable. They might start becoming defensive and deflect and try to hide from it. They might blame it on their circumstances. They might blame it on their upbringing or their personality. They might do lots of things that don't feel very functional, that don't feel very healthy. But long term, what you're doing is you're giving that person the opportunity or the chance to change, to be set free. And that's actually a gift that you're giving to someone. Now, we also don't have to leave people to muddle through on their own. Even though good intentions don't prevent suffering, they do lessen it. So instead of self-righteously destroying someone's sense of self and how good they are, coming at someone and saying, you're not actually very kind at all, you're actually really nasty. You think you're so kind, you think you're helping, you're actually ruining everything for this family. That's definitely not the way to go. We want to actually build up their good intentions, support their good intentions, acknowledge their good intentions. Yes, you had the best intentions, and we love that you care so much about our family. We love that you care so much about good things for people. But you also have to know that it's really causing a lot of harm. It's really causing pain. It's not about blaming the person. It's not about tearing them down. It's not about making them feel bad. It's not about resentment. It's just letting them know your intentions are so good and we love that, but you need to know it's actually hurting us. It's actually causing harm. So we also, for ourselves, need to be mindful of this. Be open to the possibility that your intentions might be good, and that doesn't mean you've gotten it right the first time around. But don't just beat yourself up. Don't just withdraw from the situation. Right? The world needs your love and your care and your engagement. So even when you have made a mistake, when you've loved someone and then realized you were actually causing harm, don't stop loving them. Just try to adjust your behavior. And guess what? You might make mistakes again. And you will actually make mistakes again. You might cause more harm. But if you have that good intention, keep trying to put it into action. And have the humility to hear when someone says, you're actually doing this in a way that's not working, to hear that, to take it in, to remember the intentions are what matter, but then to adjust your behavior so you can actually carry forward those intentions into the actual impact it has on the world. Amen.
Thank you for listening. To learn more, visit newchurch.org.